paratai baliato seteka embrete ilata dwell. They say for the fullness of the Godhead dwelt in him bodily. This is what the Bible called the mystery of godliness, that God became flesh. So when Jesus is walking by and you see him, what you are seeing is not just a person walking around. What you are seeing is dominion moving. What you are seeing is judgment moving. What you are seeing is power and authority moving. What you are seeing is purity moving. That is what is moving. Jesus is the convergence of all of the dimensions of God. So when we preach Christ to a generation, we are not inviting people to become a part of a religion. We are inviting people to come and interact with the totality of God, and also to internalize the totality of God. This is why Christianity is different from every other religion. In every religion of the world, they are trying to reach God and to please God. But in Christianity, God is reaching us so that He can live in us and manifest Himself through us. If you don't know this, the number of years you have spent in church will mean nothing. If you don't know this, whether you enjoy the praise and worship, it means nothing. If you don't know this, whether you have a title of a bishop, an apostle, or a prophet, it means nothing. Because the idea in the heart of God was for Him to be known, and the only vessel that can host Him is the vessel called human. And so the first human that carried God completely was Christ. So Jesus became a prototype of what God wanted to mass produce. Jesus became the first expression of what God wanted to do in all eternity. And so when we see Jesus, we see God. When we encounter Jesus, we encounter God. When we touch Jesus, we touch God. For in Him dwelleth the fullness of the Godhead bodily. What a joy that our God is no longer hidden in the cloud, that our God is no longer a mystery that we cannot interact with, that our God expresses Himself in fullness, and we can see Him, and we can touch Him, and we can relate with Him. So although I cannot have a relationship with dominion, although I cannot have a relationship with authority, although I cannot have a relationship with judgment, but when Jesus shows up, dominion now has a voice. Dominion can now talk to me. When Jesus shows up, God's authority can now be relatable, because He has become an interactable dimension of God. Imagine this microphone I'm using. If you didn't have this casing, I'll be holding cartridges and electric current. It will kill me. Imagine the keyboard my brother is playing there. If he didn't have a case, what you'll be touching will be electric current. He will be electrocuted. He will die. The reason we are able to relate with electric current and use it for our benefit is because there are encasements that makes it user friendly. So Jesus becomes God in a user friendly manner, so that as we relate with Him, we relate with the fullness of God by time. This is why the apostles preached Christ everywhere they went. They were not inviting people into a religion. They were bringing people into a relationship. John said in John chapter 1, 1 John chapter 1 verse 1 to 2, he said, that which was from the beginning, which we heard of, which we saw, we looked upon, but now our hands have handled of the word of life. He said, that is what we have come to commit to you. We heard about it. The angels sang of Him. The prophet spoke of Him, but now we can handle Him. Now we can relate with Him. That is the witness and the testimony we have brought to you. Paul speaking, he said, when I came unto you, I did not come with excellency of speech, declaring unto you the counsels of God. He said, I came in the demonstration of the Spirit and power. But how is it possible? Because I choose to know nothing among you save Christ and Him crucified. He said, my preaching and my teaching, they were not with enticing words of human wisdom. They were the demonstration of the Spirit and power. What does that mean? When I reveal God, everything God can do begins to happen. And the way I reveal God is to reveal a person. The way I manifest God is to manifest a person. Because when Jesus shows up, God shows up. And everything God can do, Jesus is able to demonstrate it. In 1 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 23 and 24, he said, we preach Christ and him crucified. He said, to the Jews, it is stumbling block. He said, to the Greek, it is foolishness. He said, but to us who are being saved, whether Jew or Greek, he said, Christ is the wisdom of God and the power of God. And so everywhere I need judgment, I don't need to shout. I bring Christ on the scene. Everywhere I need dominion, I don't need to shout. See, they are marginalizing you. They are trying to turn you up and down. They are trying to rubbish you. Bring Christ. When Christ shows up, dominion will show up. Hey, if who is taking place in the city, if who is happening, you have done all the strategy session, it didn't work. Bring Christ. When Christ shows up, judgment will show up. Iniquity is everywhere. People are fornicating, people are perverting the ordinances of God. Bring Christ. When Christ shows up, purity shows up. This is why Christ has become the solution of humanity. We preach Christ and him crucified. To the Jews it is foolishness, a stumbling block. To the Greek it's foolishness, but to us who are being saved, whether Jew or Greek, Christ is the wisdom of God, is the power of God. You know, I've traveled around preaching this gospel for a little while. You go to certain places and you see people who are suffering from the wickedness of others. Somebody goes somewhere and afflicts somebody through demonic powers, and you see people carrying the yokes of pains, the yokes of frustration, and then you show up and you just talk about Jesus, and then the presence appears. When the presence comes, you know the house of God is there. And then as you are talking, suddenly judgment is released. And then that person who carried that yoke for 10 years, suddenly the yoke is broken. And then not too long, the wicked people that perpetrated it, if they don't repent, then judgment visits their home. And then they begin to confess. And they are wondering, what did you do? Oh, powerful man of God came. It's not about powerful man of God, it's who you came with. Christ came, so judgment came. Judgment came. I've seen people who were marginalized. What they deserved, what they qualified for, was taken from them, and they had nobody. And then we just preach Christ to them. And it looks as if we didn't help them. But as they left, Christ then went with them. And then they go to the same place where they were being marginalized, and suddenly the dominion of Christ rises on their inside, and the places where they were enslaved, they become rulers, and even themselves can't understand. Christ is the wisdom of God. Christ is the power of God. This is why he becomes the beauty and the excellency of Christianity. Christ is all we know. Christ is all we preach. Christ is all we are, and Christ is enough. Because he is the fullness of the Godhead bodily. This is so beautiful. This is so remarkable. When you know this, your life changes. Because an army can rise up against you, and you may not have anybody to call. You may not have anybody to summon. And then you go back to Christ, and Christ tells you, don't worry. All the angels of heaven are subject to me. All the kings of the earth, their heart is in my hand. I am dominion personified. And then you just rise up and you see an army collapse before you like a pack of cards. And then they are wondering, what did you do? I didn't do anything. I came with Christ. Because Christ is enough. This is the secret of Christianity. The secret of Christianity is that we don't just obey rules, we carry God on our inside. You have gathered here tonight because of Jesus.